Tonight, Commonwealth Bank rushes to reverse charges across the country after users report duplicate transactions on their cards. Hello, I'm Isabel Dayman, live from Adelaide. This is ABC News. Also, Israel ramps up its offensive in northern Gaza despite world leaders calling for peace after the death of Hamas's leader. A colourful welcome for King Charles and Queen Camilla after arriving in Sydney last night. And Port Adelaide inches closer to a debut finals appearance after beating the Saints at Alberton. Commonwealth Bank users have been left fuming after a costly glitch in the system meant they were double charged for payments they've made in the past 24 hours. The bank says it's now rectified the issue, but it left many with overdrawn accounts and unable to pay for weekend necessities.
Tom Kelly tried to buy a coffee on his way to work this morning, but his card was declined. He then realised his account was overdrawn by more than $100.
I realised that I've been charged twice for all of the transactions that I'd made yesterday. It's inhibited me getting lunch today for work. It's also inhibiting me being able to get home today from work.
During his shift as a social worker, he spent almost 2 hours on the phone to Commonwealth Bank, only to be told they couldn't give him a time frame for when his money would be returned to his account.
And I said, look, mate, it's not just me. There are thousands of us out here, and some of us are wondering how we're going to eat tonight.
Mr Kelly is one of many CommBank customers affected by a glitch in their system today, causing duplicate transactions.
I was at an appointment and it said like my smart access had been overdrawn by, $200. And I'm thinking, what?
Many flooded social media to vent their frustrations. One said, I can't pay for my fuel and the police have been called. Another said $250 in groceries to feed my family, including desperately needed nappies, rejected at the checkout.
Your Streamline account balance is $0.00. Can't even get a feed or nothing.
In a statement, the bank apologised to customers and said the process to reverse these is underway and customers are now seeing the duplicate transactions disappear. They said the process should be completed this evening. CommBank wouldn't say how many customers had been affected. Leah Harris, ABC News.
Days after the Prime Minister's latest property purchase was in the spotlight, the Coalition has unveiled a major new housing policy. It's promising $5 billion towards fast-tracking the power and water infrastructure needed for new housing developments. Here's political reporter Oliver Gordon.
In a battleground state,
welcome to Western Australia.
sights firmly focused on the top job.
The Prime Minister's got one eye on retirement. I'm firmly focused on making sure that we can build new homes for Australian families.
The Coalition to invest $5 billion to tackle housing infrastructure delays.
The not sexy stuff. That's the sewerage, that's the water, that's the power and the comms.
A scheme to break the infrastructure bottleneck and build 500,000 new homes, welcomed by industry.
We cannot build until infrastructure is in place.
A real shot in the arm for the great Australian dream.
It complements previous Coalition commitments to increase housing supply by slashing migration, cutting international student numbers and temporarily stopping foreign investors purchasing existing homes in Australia. But it hasn't taken long for the government to write off the new policy as a con job, claiming the Coalition would spend less overall on housing than a re-elected Albanese government.
Peter Dutton's taking with one hand and giving with the other. It's a card trick.
The Coalition has this week confirmed, if elected, it would walk away from Labor's commitment to build 1.2 million homes this decade, which they've labelled an unrealistic pipe dream.
So they're not going to get within cooee of that so-called target or aspiration.
Settle down, fella.
The Prime Minister saying if the Coalition was serious about helping aspiring homeowners, they'd pass his housing legislation.
Peter Dutton is blocking legislation along with the Greens that's in the Senate and been there now for over 200 days.
The Greens and the Coalition have this week sought to capitalise on the Prime Minister's decision to purchase a high-end home during a housing crisis. It's too early to tell if voters will punish the PM for that one. What is clear, though, is that housing is shaping up as a hot issue, with a federal election just around the corner. Oliver Gordon, ABC News, Canberra.
Israel is ramping up its attacks on northern Gaza a day after the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. With the militant group seemingly rudderless, attention is now turning to its future as world leaders appeal to both sides to finally end the conflict.
An Israeli tank lines up its target, firing a deadly shot. The Israeli Defence Force is releasing more vision of the mission which killed the country's most wanted.
We mourn the leader, our fighter and brother.
Hamas officials speaking for the first time since the death of Yahya Sinwar, promising the group will not capitulate to Israel or release their hostages.
Those prisoners will not return to you until the aggression on our people in Gaza is stopped.
A seemingly unlikely prospect as Israel's defence minister vows to stay in Gaza for years. However, his death is bringing hope that new leadership could take the conflict in a new direction.
Now, we must make the most of this moment. What is needed now is a ceasefire in Gaza.
But US President Joe Biden is admitting peace in the Middle East will be hard to achieve.
We think that there's a possibility of working for a ceasefire in Lebanon, and it's going to be harder in Gaza.
Israel may have hoped that releasing drone vision of Sinwar's final moments would have helped in its public relations campaign, given it something of a trophy after months of searching for the Hamas leader. But it may well have had the opposite effect, emboldening Hamas, its supporters and the broader Palestinian community, giving them an image to cling on to of a martyr fighting until his dying moments.
I was extremely proud and I was sad for him. He was among the resistance and not hiding.
May he rest in peace. He has become a symbol for the whole world.
In Gaza, dozens of dead and wounded are rushed to hospital as Israeli forces ramp up attacks around a refugee camp in Jabalia.
The airstrikes have increased against our homes. We don't know what they want. They killed Sinwar as well as Haniyeh. No one is left.
The IDF bolstering its forces in and around Gaza City, while Palestinians watch and wait for the next strike. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Residents in far western New South Wales are being warned to reduce power usage during this evening as a large-scale backup generator struggles to meet energy demands. Power was restored to communities like Wilcannia and Menindee yesterday after wild weather destroyed transmission towers across the region. But grid operator Essential Energy is urging households and businesses in Broken Hill and surrounds to avoid consumption, particularly during the peak period from 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Power may need to be rotated between different areas for up to 2 hours at a time, prioritising life support customers and loads such as Broken Hill Base Hospital. Smaller generators have been sent to those communities by the Rural Fire Service to support the network. South Australia Police has charged 46 people on the National Child Sex Offenders Register for breaching their legal obligations. Patrols searched 161 homes and observed 277 offenders between August and September as part of the third Child Safe operation. 8 registered offenders allegedly failed to report contact with children, while 6 were allegedly found to be in possession of child exploitation material. Several phones and computers were confiscated, along with 71 storage devices.
We have no time for the vile monsters who prey upon children. I think it is a positive step that they are receiving the utmost scrutiny.
An Adelaide man has been charged over the importation of more than 20 kilograms of a substance known as a date rape drug. Australian Border Force alleges its officers found 2 packages imported into New South Wales from China containing bottles of the liquid 1,4-butanediol. The substance is a border-controlled drug known to be used as a substitute for recreational drug GHB and has been linked to sexual assaults. Authorities say they swapped the drug with a harmless liquid and sent the packages to their intended address in Davern Park in Adelaide's north earlier this week. The packages were allegedly accepted by a 35-year-old man who'll face court in December. King Charles and Queen Camilla have received an official welcome at Sydney Airport after touching down from the United Kingdom last night. It's the King's 17th visit to Australia, but his first as head of state.
Touching down in Sydney to weather that was distinctly British. The first visit by a reigning monarch since Queen Elizabeth toured in 2011. On hand, the Prime Minister to welcome the King and Queen, himself a lifelong Republican. Also waiting patiently, Kai and his sister, who, like the King, have suffered at the hands of cancer. Kai's lifelong wish to meet the royals.
Kai, did you do any practices handing over the flowers? Did you rehearse that?
I didn't really rehearse handing over the flowers, but I rehearsed my bowing.
It was really lovely to watch Kai get his wish to meet the royal family.
The Opera House was lit up with images of the couple as part of the welcome, but bad weather delayed a ship leaving, blocking the display for nearly an hour. Today, the royal couple have been resting at Admiralty House ahead of official engagements tomorrow. It's a scaled-down 5-day trip, but one the King believes is important. And while monarchists expect the visit will strengthen Australia's connection to their sovereign, opponents hope it's another chance to reject the concept that someone from the other side of the world is still our head of state. Lydia Feng, ABC News.
US President Joe Biden has urged his Western allies to continue their support for Ukraine after meeting with NATO superpowers in Berlin. It comes just over 2 weeks out from the US election, and there are concerns about what will happen in Ukraine if the Republicans win. Donald Trump has signalled he'd be more reluctant than Biden to continue with support. The United States is Ukraine's biggest military and financial backer.
We're going to stay with Ukraine. We're going to make sure they continue to have capabilities.
Millions of people in Cuba are without electricity after the country's main energy supply failed, sparking a nationwide blackout. Officials say a fault at one of the island's main power plants has led to the collapse of the entire system. Cuba's communist-run government has blamed the problem on US sanctions that have been in place for decades. The mother of Liam Payne's son, Cheryl Cole, has asked fans to let the former One Direction singer rest in peace. His father, Jeff Payne, has arrived in Argentina. He met with fans and read messages of condolences left by the crowd. The 31-year-old singer fell from the third-floor hotel balcony in Buenos Aires and died on Thursday. Local media has reported the family has visited the morgue. They can be a parent or teacher's worst nightmare. So, at what age should kids get their first smartphone? One British city is undertaking to ban the devices for all children under 14. It's part of a global movement to get children spending time away from screens and off social media.
Students in the British city of St Albans march to a unique beat. While their peers play games and watch videos on mobile screens, parents in this city have made a pact not to give their children a smartphone until they're at least 14.
Nobody wants their child to be the odd one out. Everybody wants to fit in. Of course they do, particularly at that tender age. So if everybody is holding off until 14, then the expectation has shifted. And that is it's sort of like a teamwork.
6 months in, the campaign is gaining momentum.
Is becoming a movement, not just in St Albans, but across the country, actually.
Some people that do have one, they might say that life isn't life without one, but then it is, like, life is still life.
There's so much beyond the screen. Like, you can talk to your family members, friends, you can go on a walk, you can actually meet your friends instead of just texting them.
Around a quarter of 5 to 7-year-olds in the UK own a smartphone. That number jumps to 95% by age 12. Schools in the UK are hoping to prove it's still possible to give kids a childhood free from smartphones, and they're hoping progress made here might inspire cities around the world to take similar action. It's part of a global pushback against the prolific technology. Australia and parts of the US are exploring social media bans for children amid growing claims its use is linked to a decline in mental health.
I would say the evidence does not back up many of the stronger claims that abound that tie smartphones kind of by themselves to adverse mental health. I think it's a movement born of frustration. I think a lot of parents have wanted governments to regulate big tech for a long time and it isn't happening, and they feel now they have to take action into their own hands.
Lessons learned here could help parents confronting similar challenges in other parts of the world. Michelle Rimmer, ABC News, London.
A revival is underway in one of the country's most remote corners. For 2 years in a row, the community of Lake Nash on the Northern Territory-Queensland border has been cut off by floodwaters. Months on, the water has receded and the once dusty landscape has sprung back to life. It's inspiring school leavers to venture from the city to the outback in search of red dirt and adventure. Victoria Pengilly travelled to Lake Nash for this special report.
As sunrise breaks, ringers are saddling up for another long day. With 1.2 million hectares and 65,000 cattle, this property on the Northern Territory-Queensland border is a long way from just about anywhere.
I remember driving out here for the first time and it's just flat for as far as the eye can see. Felt like you're looking at the end of the world a little bit.
This is Lake Nash, one of the country's largest cattle stations. And for this group of adventurous school leavers, it's a transformative experience.
Everyone who comes up here leaves a different person. I'm unrecognisable from the person I turned up as and the person I am today.
And you see each other every second of the day. You wake up, you shower with them, eat breakfast, lunch and dinner, and you're working with them too. It's just crazy.
On today's list of chores, mustering thousands of cattle for transport. It's not just by land. In this vast expanse, a bird's eye view gives some perspective. 18 months ago, this station looked completely different.
A wall of water just coming straight for us. And we spent a lot of effort getting everything onto higher ground, making sure all our crew were safe.
Heavy rain caused the once dry Georgina River to flow and then peak. Floodwaters swept through the station and surrounding landscape.
It was surreal. It just came up so slowly every hour, just a bit higher and a bit higher.
Staff were evacuated to higher ground, but the station and nearby Aboriginal community were cut off by road for nearly 4 months. Another flood this year left the station and community isolated once again.
I definitely felt like it was a little bit isolating. The first couple of months of being here and just like not having that access to a big town even though it's a few hours away.
The floodwaters have now receded, leaving a transformed terrain teeming with life.
It's almost become normal to see it so green and to have the river still, you know, where you water ski on it, and some years you can't put the boat in at all, and this year we've been skiing on it for months.
After 2 strong wet seasons, this dusty landscape has completely transformed. The cattle are fat, there's good feed in the paddocks, the staff have a spring in their step. But as anyone who lives on the land knows, the next big dry could be right around the corner. As the sun sets, ringers are winding down, ready to face whatever tomorrow throws at them.
There's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel starting to come through. I think we're going to be okay.
Victoria Pengilly, ABC News, Lake Nash.
The growing issue of concussion injuries in sport is being highlighted in a new TV show, with the message that help is available if affected people are willing to seek it out. ABC TV's Plum follows a fictional retired rugby league player as he grapples with the effects of CTE after suffering repeated head injuries.
You probably got friends out there with the same kind of symptoms and no one is admitting to it.
Peter the Plum Lum is a man on the precipice. A Sharks NRL great, slowly unravelling and in denial about suffering from CTE, brain damage caused by repeated head injuries, which can only be diagnosed posthumously.
If Plum has CTE, he needs to be addressing it.
I'd love to provoke discussion around male communication and avoidance, and what holds us all back, men and women, from reaching out for help when we're a little scared.
I had a moment and I haven't had one since.
Based on the novel by Brendan Cowell, he plays the titular character. Medical experts and former NRL players were involved in the consultation process, including James Graham, who's been open about his own battles with concussions.
It can be quite confronting and difficult to watch, and especially when you see parts of you in there.
This can happen to anybody, even though it happens to be an elite footballer. And we've sadly seen a lot of cases where we've got young players who are later diagnosed with CTE.
I've been writing things down.
Plum finds poetry and uses the written word to process his emotions. The overriding message is that help is out there.
So that's the suggestion, is don't blow out and piss it up and stay in your depression, is reach out, do something positive, hit it straight on, and you might just be all right.
With concussion, if you suffer it, you need to tell the truth with it.
And we can make a difference by acting early and noticing the signs when they are there late.
Amanda Shalala, ABC News.
Aileen Gilroy has starred again for the high-flying Hawks, helping lock in a maiden AFLW finals berth for the club. Hawthorn shook off a slow start to run away by 37 points against the Giants and move to the top of the ladder. Meanwhile, Gold Coast has notched its first win of 2024, a last-minute major helping to secure a win over the Swans. Melbourne continued its hot run of form as it pushes for a final spot, defeating the informed Tigers. And last night, Port Adelaide notched a win over St Kilda, taking another step towards its first finals appearance.
The Hawks have been the big improvers of the season, but it was the Giants who got the jump early in Frankston.
Oh, she's got it! Tani Evans, not once but twice!
The home side settling with two straight majors of their own. Aileen Gilroy converting from the boundary.
And now she slots a clever one from the pocket.
Hawthorn soared with 7 goals in the second half. Gilroy shaping up as one of the league's best.
Oh, no way, she's threaded the needle.
The Hawks surging to the top of the ladder, locking in a finals berth for the first time. The Suns and the Swans may be out of the finals race, but they still put on a show in Sydney.
On the left, eyes light up and drills it.
Gold Coast led by 15 late in the fourth before the Swans hit back with 3 straight. A late snap from the ruck securing a thrilling first win of the season for the Suns.
Snaps! Goals! What a moment from Jack Dupay!
A resurgent Melbourne continued its hot run of form, dominating the Tigers at Casey Fields.
Outside of the boot is a ripper!
Alyssa Bannon kicked 4 goals and handed off another as the Demons moved up to 9th on the ladder. Last night, Port Adelaide took another step towards its first finals appearance, defeating St Kilda by 15 points at Alberton Oval.
Dowrick getting busy, makes outstanding contact.
The Power kicked 5 goals in the opening term to set up a 4th straight win, jumping into the top 8. Cameron Slesser, ABC News.
New Zealand is through to the Women's T20 World Cup final for the first time since 2010 after holding on to defeat the West Indies in Sharjah overnight. The White Ferns elected to bat first and posted a total of just 128 after West Indies all-rounder Deandra Dottin claimed 4 for 22. New Zealand spinner Eden Carson took the opening 3 wickets before Dottin hit 3 sixes in an over to put the total back in reach for the West Indies. They needed 11 off the last 5 balls, but a thrilling final over from New Zealand's Susie Bates sealed the White Ferns' 8-run victory. New Zealand will play South Africa in the final on Monday morning, Australian Daylight Saving Time. Neither team has ever won a T20 World Cup. Jorge Martin has won the inaugural Phillip Island MotoGP sprint race, leading from start to finish. Marc Marquez took second place after jumping ahead of Enea Bastianini. The race was not without controversy. Marco Bezzecchi and Maverick Vinales clipped each other in the second last lap. The crash, which is under investigation, sent the riders barrel rolling across the track. World Championship leader Martin will now turn his attention to Sunday's main race, where he'll begin in pole position. Trainer Kieran Maher has had a day out at the races, winning both the Everest in Sydney and the Caulfield Cup in Melbourne. Bella Nipotina became the first mare or filly to win the $20 million race at Royal Randwick. It was the second Everest win by jockey Craig Williams after his 2022 triumph. Around an hour later, Duke de Cesar claimed the 148th running of the Caulfield Cup, ahead of favourite Buckaroo in second and Land Legend in third. The winning trainer paid tribute to Caulfield Cup winning jockey Harry Coffey after the race. From wartime heroes to rats of the sky, the reputation of pigeons has shifted across the centuries, but a new generation of pigeon fanciers in the Riverland is on a mission to showcase their hidden talents.
Breeding and training feathery friends. A passion for the Darling family.
I love getting to form a bond with my pigeons and have a relationship with them.
This pigeon fancier is on a mission to shift the breed's poor reputation by showcasing their unique skills.
So some breeds of pigeons can be trained to essentially dance, and they use this to communicate with each other, and so you train them essentially to want to communicate with you.
Creating a bond with pigeons requires patience and trust.
Everyone has their own style, whether you click at them, talk to them. I personally, you hear them coo, so I go to imitate them. And I found this quite works quite well.
While breeding pigeons is a fun hobby for Kimberly Darling and her family, in the past they've been used to pass vital messages during wartime.
More than 30 carrier pigeons received the animal equivalent of the Victoria Cross during the Second World War.
There are, noted cases of birds saving hundreds of lives.
Pigeons are still highly prized, with pigeon fanciers showcasing the bird's abilities.
They dance for their owners. As a judge, I like to see pouters performing. That's how they should be judged.
For Kimberly Darling, exhibiting her birds is about sharing knowledge and introducing others to the joy of pigeons.
Some kids have, they've never seen a bird or been able to hold a bird, and so and they're always so excited to see how soft the feathers are, and it's so wonderful to share that with them.
From wartime heroes to special friends. Jessica Schremmer, ABC News.
Very clever. Time to check the weather details now, but first tonight's photo shows a rainbow at Port Elliot and was sent to us by Paul Heinrich. It was a lovely and sunny spring day across Adelaide today. In the city it reached a pleasant 21.9 degrees at 4:15 this afternoon, after dropping to 8.1 overnight. The fine conditions extended across much of the state, apart from isolated light morning showers about the lower southeast. 25 was the top in Port Augusta and 22 in Kingscote. To the charts, and that cloud being pushed off the east coast is associated with a low that'll send strong winds, showers and large waves along the New South Wales coast. Unstable winds will cause showers over parts of Queensland, the Northern Territory and the Northwest Tropics. A front will bring strong winds and showers to WA's west, then head over our way in the coming days, but in the meantime, a high will keep our state dry. A windy day with 22 for Sydney tomorrow. Cloudy and 19 degrees in Melbourne, showers for Perth with 24, similar conditions and 34 for Darwin. Closer to home, fine and warm to hot across the north tomorrow, with temperatures increasing to above average, up to 34 in Oodnadatta, 30 for Ceduna and Woomera. Local morning fog patches about the southern agricultural area, then dry and mostly sunny in the south. Tops ranging from 21 in Mount Gambier to 27 in Renmark. Warm and mostly sunny for Adelaide tomorrow, 25 degrees for the city after an overnight low of 10. On the waters, southeasterly winds tending southwesterly to 15 knots in the evening and seas below 1 metre. The sun will rise around 6:30 and set about 13 hours later. Looking ahead, 30 on Monday before that front from the west edges its way into our state, bringing cloudy conditions on Tuesday, 21 degrees on Wednesday, then clear for the rest of the week, a top of 25 degrees forecast for next Saturday. That's the latest from the Adelaide newsroom. I'm Isabel Dayman. Thanks for your company. Have a great night.